Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Party time for Canadian MJ Bulls. Congrats everybody out there. Congrats to Canadians setting the example for the world. And hopefully the US gets its act together. But I don't mind if the US takes its time a little bit longer. Let this Canadian hype play out for the next year plus. Going to be a big catalyst when we get all the news coverage from the first day of sales, which is now set for October 17th. We'll see if that ends up being the case, but that is now the official date. Everything's looking good. Everything's looking bullish. Bulls in full control. We're above the upper Bollinger Band in breakout mode. If you're in a swing position, if you're in a long-term position, you're not touching it. If you're in a swing position, you can use the upper Bollinger Band as your guide and say to yourself, as long as we continue to close above the upper Bollinger Band, I will continue to hold my position. That's a bit of a trailing stop loss, so to speak, but you would have to do it manually. But either way, my strategy is holding, that's one of my strategies, hold a swing position as long as the upper Bollinger Band holds, and then a day trading position because the volatility definitely allows for both bullish and bearish plays. But the end of the day buying pressure here on WEED was very, very notable. Just tons of money and volume coming in and a really strong close. This is the kind of scenario that favors a gap up open. We had a gap up open yesterday, blue sky breakout, huge money pouring in, and a very strong close. I'm looking for a gap up tomorrow, and we'll have to see if it's a gap and run, or the first 20 minutes usually tells us whether we see profit taking or continuation. There was a ton of buying at the end of the day, like I said, and just looking at the net house positions, we've got CIBC 10 million in buying. So CIBC, if you were watching the end of the day, it was really fun to watch. There was a $45 resistance on the ask, and there was $9 million sitting there. And CIBC, I am sure, had a significant part in breaking that wall down, and we ran into the close. So I am certainly swinging a position at this point, and I did trade it in both directions today, and we are looking extremely good. We now have psychological resistance levels to be watching, 46, 47, and in terms of support levels, we have to look on the shorter term time frames. So I would be looking at the hourly, and the hourly has not established a support recently. The last hourly support was 42.84, so have to keep that in mind. We are overextended, but RSI means a whole lot less, telling us overbought conditions when we're in blue sky breakout mode, so we have to keep that in mind. The 15-minute RSI, just above 70, not too high. 4-hour RSI, getting up there, but if we see a gap up open, I would look for at least some consolidation similar to what we saw today in the sense that it cooled off RSI levels, reestablished some support levels, and then the bulls did their thing again. So some short-term patterns, like I said, there was bearish opportunity first thing this morning. And I was trading like a madman first thing where I bought the initial dip. I did sell once we saw some profit taking. And then we had a 2-minute, this is the 2-minute time frame. And things were moving so fast that you can use smaller term time frames to keep an eye on things where we had a clear little low, high, higher, low, lower, high, higher, low, clear equilibrium. And as soon as this higher low of 44.30 broke, I went bearish and we saw some nice follow through. I ended up covering pretty quickly because I'm not going to stand in the way of blue sky bulls very long in a short position. So I lock in that profit when I have it, when I'm trading against the trend. Would have made a lot more if I held it, but I'm not worried about that. And then re-entered a long position towards the end of the day. There was one little fake out that kept me from getting the ideal position, and that was this little pullback right here. Ideally, I wanted to see the bulls hold 43. They did not, but re-entered on the continuation move over 43.50. That was a little bit of a double top. And then obviously the bull volume just poured in, and we just saw bull flag after bull flag, huge bull volume. And again, I do anticipate the gap up open that we became so accustomed to previously in the hype days of Canadian MJ, and we have not seen that in quite some time. And it does look like that is what market makers are looking towards. Keep in mind with CGC, you can get some information pre-market, and you can also trade. I'm going to be, we trade pre-market on CGC here with the chart guys, a lot of our members, and pre-market we were up in the $34 range, and we had members locking in profit $33.80 to $34, and the next thing you know, we drop all the way down into the 31s. So we never got over 34. So people that sold pre-market, had the opportunity. A lot of Canadians were frustrated watching along in the sense that, their hands are tied until the bell rings. Although there are ways that you can, call your broker and transfer your shares. It's a little bit complicated, but people have done that as well in the chat room. Bottom line is look for CGC for information. And if you are trading, you definitely want to be watching both CGC and WEED because that can often give us support levels. So this low on WEED, let's go back to it. So WEED, the low on the 5-minute time frame right here at 42.84. The reason that this held, like why would this level hold? What significance does it have? CGC had the biggest bid that I had seen that day at that point. So we dropped down, we hit the big bid on CGC. It was only, 16,000, 18,000 shares, which isn't big money compared to WEED, but it is compared to CGC. We hit that, we started to sell into it a little bit, and then the bulls showed up. We didn't go any lower than that. So it was essentially a support wall on CGC that you could not see on WEED if you were only looking at that ticker. So the bottom line is if you are trading, you do want to be watching both tickers because they do affect each other. So bottom line, bullish, swinging the position, looking for a gap up open tomorrow, and we'll be watching psychological resistance levels. And we do have a little support level at the end of the day, 44.80, and then down to 44.11. So congrats again to the bulls. Long-term bulls are happy. Short-term bulls are happy. Only people that aren't happy are any shorts. And what are you doing holding a short position in this scenario? CRON. So Cron got a little higher low and higher high on the daily now, seeing some recovery. It's very clear that weed is getting all the hype. And the reason for that is it's the sector leader. And when you're writing an article about it in the US or writing an article or, doing a little news blip, you're not going to be talking about, 5 different tickers, the major tickers. You're going to be giving your headline, Canada legalizes marijuana, sets the date for this time. And if there is any mention of stocks, with most of the news is not mentioning stocks, but the ones that do, they're looking at Canopy because it is the go-to name. And now that we have the listing on the NYSE, obviously there's a lot more exposure and a lot more interest in the US as well. So there's a ton of volume in the US, not comparative to WED, and that's something to note. WED has a lot more dollar volume than CGC, but the US ticker on Cron has more dollar volume than the Canadian ticker. So that's something to note because I chart weed and I trade CGC based off of my charting on weed, but I chart the US Cron because that's where the dollar volume is. That's where there's more liquidity. So that's what I want to be watching. So Cron for resistance, we're looking at 980, not as strong a close. Again, I personally just want to choose the strongest, biggest bull short term to capitalize on this momentum. So I am not trading any of these other names right now. I'm keeping an eye on them for any laggard plays, but don't need a laggard play when the lead bull is doing its thing. 980 is resistance. Then we're looking up at 986, 10 psychological, and then 1056 is the clear resistance level after that. So Cron, definitely seeing some of the follow through in the hype. It's just not anywhere near as strong as what we're seeing in WEED. And again, that's because of blue sky breakout, the lack of any dollar volume or the lack of any previous price resistance. And you better believe that market makers know this and they are going to push this price up as they did. I mean, you could see the accumulation that was going on yesterday. It was significant accumulation. And now those who were accumulating 2 days ago are going to be benefiting the next few days. So ACB, also a key resistance. We had a gap up open. Didn't see an extremely strong close, but 1015 and 1022. If we can't break 1022, it is notable. We'll look to pull back and form another higher low on the daily, but it's all about that 1022 resistance for the rest of this week and whether or not we can break it. If we do break that level, we're going to have to zoom out to the weekly time frame to find the next resistance. Bulls always like when that happens because that means we are making a clear bull break. And after 1022, the next level is 1025 and 1113. So again, we are nowhere near all-time highs in these other names. There is no doubt that ACB and APH are inhibited by their lack of tickers aside from the OTC. So just me personally as a trader, I am trading with over twice as much money in CGC or the US ticker Cron than I would on APHQF or on ACBFF. And the reason for that is I can, number one, place stop losses where I cannot place stop losses on the OTC tickers. I can on the NYSE and NASDAQ. And number two, there's a lot more dollar volume and a lot more liquidity, and it's a lot more comfortable is the bottom line. So as long as that's the case, more dollar volume is going to go into these names that are dual listed on legitimate US exchanges. And in my opinion, you're definitely seeing the result of that over the last couple of months where we have Cron and WED both very bullish on the weekly and ACB and APH a laggard compared to those two names. So APH on the daily time frame is in a nice equilibrium. We have our high, low, lower high, higher low, and if we cannot break 1304, we're going to set a lower high and stay in this tightening range. I personally hope that happens just because I love these daily equilibriums when they get really tight. This would be a great trade setup heading into July, and as soon as the equilibrium breaks, we have a clear setup. If we see a break of the lower highs, it's a bull break. If we see a break of the higher lows, it's a bear break. But the bulls still have momentum, and they have a chance to break this 1304 level and not continue to tighten up in this equilibrium. But it's going to require follow through tomorrow, and tomorrow's probably their chance to do it, 1304. If we don't do it tomorrow, we're likely going to see some short-term consolidation, and I do anticipate a higher low to form. If we do fail at breaking 1304, I will anticipate a higher low to stay in this tightening range, which is why I would be looking into July for an eventual break of this pattern if the bulls cannot break it over the next couple of days. So that's what we got heading into tomorrow. All of my attention is on WEED. Very entertaining, very profitable. Congrats again to all the bulls out there. And at this point, there is no reason to sell in the short term. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Watching for gap up open. I personally am always a little bit protective. I do lock in an initial amount of profit, but then the first 20 minutes can let us know if we're heading back down to fill that gap or if the bulls are going to gap and run and see continuation. So keep an eye, keep a pulse on the media. The more media coverage we get, obviously, the better it is. You know, we want CNBC talking about it. We want news articles. We want to see people talking about it in Facebook groups. And the more attention there is, the better the results. And again, just to go back historically, when the U.S. first states, Colorado and Washington, legalized, the day that they legalized, we sold the news because the polls were known. We knew it was going to pass. And the huge bull run was the first day of sales. And in my opinion, it was because of all of the media attention. Everybody was talking about it and hoping that that is going to be the case in October as another catalyst. There's going to be catalysts before then. There's going to be MOUs. There's going to be potential news catalysts. We know WED is sitting on something like, what, $800 million at this point. So we're looking for them to make some purchases. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if I were WED, if I were Canopy, I would be compiling capital and looking to buy up U.S. companies when the political environment shifts to be more favorable. So that's where I would be storing cash. But obviously, they could have a different game plan up their sleeve. Certainly very interesting. We'll see. Never a dull moment. See you soon.